Welcome to the Hidden Corners. Tonight we are going to be reading a story sent in by one of our listeners. I want to give a big thank you to those of you that have sent us stories, and if you'd like us to read your story, you can email it to thehiddencorners.story@gmail.com. The short story tonight is Bigfoot in Colorado by Rob Bowers. Rob is the author of a book called Campfire Tales from Uncle Rob. His books are available on Amazon, and I'll put the link in the description so you can check out his site. Rob is currently working on Volume 2 of the Campfire Tales, so be sure to watch for the release of that. I want to thank Rob for sending this in to us, and I hope you'll enjoy the story. Please join Clay Steele as he reads Bigfoot in Colorado.
Bigfoot in Colorado by Rob Bowers. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the hairy man, it is known by many names around the country. Thousands of people claim to have seen it. This alleged creature is also known by many regional names. I'm partial to some of the names generated close to my area of the country. The Fouke Monster, the Oakwood Gorilla, the Caddo Critter, the Noxie Monster, the Howley Him, the Lake Worth Monster. These monikers are some of my favorites. I didn't believe in such things back in 1986. Oh, I'd seen a few movies. The Legend of Boggy Creek and The Creature from Black Lake come to mind, but they were just movies. They were simply make-believe stories to frighten teenagers at drive-in theaters. Now, I am not claiming to have actually seen anything, because I did not. But what happened one September night in 1986 forever altered my thoughts and perspectives on the subject. To be frank and honest, this event scared the heck out of me. 4 of us went trout fishing and camping in the mountains of Colorado. To this day, I'm not exactly sure where we were. I tried to find the spot again, but I never did. The 4 of us consisted of my aunt and her friend, my cousin, and myself. I followed my aunt to the spot. All I can say for sure about the location is we went west of Denver and then north. To be honest, I paid little attention. I just followed my aunt. Well, we wound up on a paved county road. The road curved at one point. On the outside of the curve was a roadside park. There was a few trash barrels there and 3 concrete picnic tables. Across the road was a small river or creek. We set up camp, which consisted of erecting 2 tents and unloading our stuff, and then we went fishing in the stream across the road. This location was just beautiful. Directly behind the roadside park, the mountain we were on sloped down, and you could see another mountain behind it. I guess there was a valley down between. We caught a nice mess of brook trout. My aunt and her friend cooked them up for supper, and it was just the best. While we were fishing, 2 other vehicles stopped at the park and set up camp. A man and a blonde woman set up a tent just down from us, and both of them fished, and I saw them catch a few trout. Then a pickup with a slide-in camper arrived, and I saw a man, a woman, a little girl about 10 years old milling about. Not long after dark, we all crawled into our tents. I was worn out, and I was fast asleep soon. I'm not sure how long I slept, but at some point I woke to my cousin shaking me. What? I was groggy and irritated. What is it? I didn't like being shaken awake. Listen, he sound rattled. I sighed deeply and listened. I didn't hear anything. I told him so. I don't hear anything. Go to sleep, I told him. No, listen, he insisted. Then I heard a loud crack. There, my cousin said. Keep listening. I heard another loud crack. Then I heard a series of maybe 4 thumps. Crack, thump, 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 thump. That's odd, I thought. After a few moments, the sound repeated. Crack, thump, thump, thump. Okay, now I was wide awake. Those cracks and those thumps sounded several more times. What the heck, I wondered aloud. It's been going on for like 10 minutes, my cousin told me. A part of my brain tried to rationalize what we were hearing. Could it be a limb breaking off a tree and rolling down the slope? Maybe, but what broke the limb? Then we heard a loud, deep grunt. That's the best I can phonetically describe the grunt. Ruh. The grunt came again. There was no branch or limb. Something made that sound, something alive. Crack. Thump, thump, thump. Then we heard something moaning. It sounded like something in pain. The moaning lasted for 15-20 seconds, and then it was loud. The sound seemed to be coming from behind the little park, down the slope, and maybe in the hidden valley below. The sound echoed all through the area. Crack, thump, 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 thump. Were we hearing the footsteps of whatever was making the grunts and the moaning? Was it getting closer? I couldn't tell. Then another sound started. At that time, I could only describe it as jibber-jabber. My cousin and I huddled in our tent and listened to this surreal noise. I can't accurately spell out what these sounds sounded like. I can only do my best to describe them. The jibber-jabber sounded like a very big man speaking a foreign language, mixed in with growls and sounds that an ape might make. And they were so loud, you could almost feel them as well as hear them. There was power behind those uncanny vocalizations. I had enough. I crawled to the front of the tent and started unzipping it. "What are you doing?" My cousin grabbed me. "You can't go out there." "I got a gun in my truck," I told him, "and I'm going to go get it." I unzipped the tent flap and crawled outside. I had a .44 Magnum pistol in my truck, and I wanted to feel its cold steel and walnut grips in my hand. Thinking back, I guess it was dumb leaving my pistol in the truck. It was very dark. I could barely see anything. I took a few steps towards where I thought I remembered my truck was parked and stopped. My cousin walked into the back of me, nearly giving me a heart attack. "What are you doing?" I asked him angrily. "You aren't leaving me in that tent by myself," he told me. "I'm going with you." "Okay," I told him while nodding, even though he couldn't see me. "Come on, I think it's this way." I moved slowly. My cousin was practically glued to my back. Ahead, I saw a glint of starlight off a windshield. There were the vehicles. I made my way to my truck. I found the door handle on the passenger side and I pulled. The door was locked. I panicked for a moment. I didn't remember locking my truck. I was digging in my pockets for keys when I heard another sound. It sounded like metal hitting glass, metal hitting my side window. I cupped my hands around my eyes and pressed my face to the glass. I could just barely make out a figure inside. It was my aunt. She was in my truck with the door locked, and the metal on glass sound was the sound of the barrel of my pistol hitting the glass. My aunt and her friend had locked themselves in my truck, found my pistol, and my aunt was just a moment away from shooting me. I jerked backwards and threw my hands up. "Stop!" I yelled. "Don't shoot, it's us." The window came down about 3 inches. "Let us in," my cousin implored him. The door unlocked and my aunt jumped out. I folded the seat forward and we crawled into the back. "Get your asses in here," my aunt's friend told us. Once inside, my aunt re-entered and shut the door, locking it once again. "You don't know how close I came to shooting you," my aunt told us. I had a pretty good idea after looking down the barrel of my hand cannon. I was normally on the other end of my massive pistol. "How long have you ladies been in here?" I asked them. "At least half an hour," my aunt replied. "What is making those noises?" my aunt's friend asked me. "I don't know," I answered honestly, "but it's big and it's pissed off." And the thing or things were still carrying on. I was starting to think there was more than one animal out there in the dark. I thought maybe there were at least two somethings out there, and they were communicating with this jibber-jabber noises. "I think there is more than one critter out there," I voiced my thoughts. "Maybe so," my aunt still cradled the pistol. "I've never heard anything like that before." I thought about asking for my pistol, but then I thought it was fine in my aunt's possession. She was probably a better shot than me anyway. "It sounds like an ape," my cousin chimed in, "or a big monkey." "I know," I agreed with him, "but out here that didn't make no sense." It did not make sense, but something was out there, and it was big, it was weird, and maybe mad at another thing just like it. Maybe it was mad at us for being there. We had no way of knowing. We just stayed in the truck all night. Now, at some point, the noise died down and it finally stopped. We had no way of knowing if the thing or the things had left, or if they wanted us to think they'd left, so we stayed in the truck. I have to say, my back seat was not very comfortable, but we felt a lot safer in the truck than in those tents. and I think we all slept a little, but not much. When it was good and light out, I told my aunt to let me out because I had to relieve myself. The mountain air was crisp and it was clean. I walked through the little park and down the slope just far enough to be out of sight. Took care of my business. I looked all around the area. I saw nothing. I saw no footprints. I saw no freshly broken branches, and I saw no weird critters. I didn't hear anything unusual either. Whatever it was, it must have gone, and good riddance. I walked back up the slope and saw my aunt's friend, and my cousin moving about outside the truck. I looked over where the other folks' camps were at. The couple and the other tent were taking it down. The family with the slide-in camper were loading stuff up, like they were all preparing to leave. I walked over to the couple with the tent. Before I could even say good morning, the blonde lady asked me if I'd heard anything strange during the night. Yeah, we did. We slept in my truck because it had us so rattled, I told her. Any idea what it was? The man whirled around and said, not a clue, but we weren't staying here another night. I think we're leaving too, I told him. I said goodbye to them and walked down to the family with the camper. We're getting the heck out of here too, the man said before I could ask. I thought they were coming into camp, the lady said. They? I raised my eyebrows. There were two of them, the man said with confidence. One was down there, and he pointed behind us and down the slope. And the other one was over that way. He pointed down and away to the right. It was Bigfoot, the little girl suddenly added to the conversation. I opened my mouth to ask her about that, but her mother put an abrupt end to the conversation. You hush up, her mother scolded. Get in a pickup. They all loaded up and they left. I walked back to our area. The others had everything broke down and loaded up. Let's go, my aunt said, obviously ready to leave. Well, what about breakfast? I questioned. We'll eat later, she said. And that settled it. We left. We did find another place to stop. We ate and fished and camped there. I kept the 44 in the tent with me this time. But nothing bothered us. The fishing wasn't as good as the first place, but the night was a lot quieter. My aunt would never talk much about that night. As the years passed, I thought about that night many times. What was the creature out there in the dark? Was there more than one? Was it a Bigfoot, like the little girl said? And what made her think that? I had so many questions and too few answers. Like I've said, I'm a curious man. I wanted answers. Bigfoot seemed like the most logical answer to the most illogical event. What we heard that night was not any animal normally found in the mountains. I read every book I could ever find on the subject of Bigfoot. I watched TV programs like In Search Of. I watched every movie I could find. I learned what I could. Back then things were different. There was no internet. There weren't TV shows on every night devoted to the subject of Bigfoot. There was no YouTube. Information was a lot harder to find. But I learned what I could. I still wasn't sure what had scared us that night. When the internet happened, I found a veritable goldmine of information. Some information was good. Some info sounded like outright crazy bull hockey to me. And then one night, I heard about some guys who had an alleged Bigfoot recording. The sounds were recorded in the Sierra Mountains in 1972. I think. The sounds were described as samurai chatter, but the program didn't play the sounds. I quickly went to YouTube and searched. I found several recordings of the alleged Bigfoot sounds recorded in the Sierras. I listened and my blood ran cold. One recording in particular took me right to that dark night in 1986. It wasn't exactly what we'd heard, but it was very, very close. I now think we did hear a Bigfoot that night, possibly two of them. What else could it have been? Can I prove it? No, we didn't see anything. So if you listen to the Sierra recordings, you'll get a sampling of what we heard that night. Sounds that defy explanation. In the dark night, the sounds echoed and reverberated through the whole area. Sounds that made us feel like small little animals huddling together for safety. Terrifying sounds from the darkness. I never camp without a firearm now. There are things out there in the dark night, unexplained things that howl and scream and jibber jabber. What are they? I don't know. But I hope to find out someday.